Hello and welcome back to ADHD Support Talk Radio. My name is Tara McGillicuddy and I am the co-host of ADHD Support Talk Radio. ADHD Support Talk Radio is sponsored by addclasses.com. Stop by and sign up for a free webinar and other educational events at addclasses.com. And today I have with me my co-host, Lynn Idris. What we're going to talk about today is perfectionism and intentional mediocrity. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you. As Tara said, my name is Lynn Idris. I am a productivity and ADHD coach. I help overwhelmed professionals reduce procrastination, improve time management, and get more done with less effort so that they have more time, energy, and money for the things that matter most to them. You can learn more about me and what I do at www.coachingadvantages.com. And when you text the phrase my quiz, just all one word, my quiz, to the number 33777, you'll get complimentary access to my online productivity breakthrough quiz to help you identify your productivity type and get personalized recommendations to help you take control of your time and your life.
Okay, welcome back. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tara McGillicuddy. Like I said before, I'm the co-host, I'm the creator of the ADHD Support Talk Radio podcast. I'm an ADHD coach. I've been involved in the online adult ADHD support community since 1997.
Sheesh.
I'm a woman with ADHD myself. You can learn about me and the products and services I offer by going to my website, taramcgillicuddy.com. Lynn and I do podcast recordings just about every month. We get together and we usually get on and talk about what should we talk about? And we both have ADHD. We have a lot of stuff going on. So sometimes it's challenging for us to come up with a topic. Lynn came up with a topic about intentional mediocrity, which I heard it. I'm like, that makes so much sense. So, Lynn, where would you like to get started with this?
Sure. One of the things I talk with my clients about, and I'm sure most of our listeners can relate to this, is how to combat perfectionistic thinking and that all or nothing thinking that gets us stuck in so many different ways and gets us in trouble in terms of how long things take and how much time it takes us to do different things in our lives. Of course, I think of things like email.
Yeah.
That's one place for a lot of us that perfectionism, all or nothing, black and white thinking comes up. When we're working on that, we want to get to the underlying root cause. Underneath a lot of the stuff we struggle with, there are executive function elements, right? There's that mental organization of information, the memory, the working memory, all of that executive function stuff that comes up for us. A lot of it comes back to our beliefs, patterns of thinking that we develop over the years that impact the way we work and the way we think we should work. So that perfection is one of the things I help my clients do is focus on what I call intentional mediocrity, which is a weird phrase. It is about the notion that not everything deserves your best effort. It's a balance between what is the payback, what is this thing worth, and making sure you're clear on what is sufficient. Does that make sense, Tara?
Yeah, and I think that comes back to done is better than perfect.
Absolutely.
Or a C grade is better than not turning it in and flunking. So yeah, that makes perfect sense.
But it's tough for us because we want to, in an email, if we're not real clear going in on what it is that we want to convey, what are the really essential pieces, we can get ourselves all tangled up in the best way to write the email or putting everything in the email. To be able to define at the outset, before you get yourself into one of those situations where you're going to be held back by your perfectionism or it's going to get in your way, really defining for yourself, what does done look like? What does sufficient look like?
Sufficient.
Sometimes my clients don't like the word sufficient, so we'll say appropriate instead, or come up with some other word that resonates with them a little better. And really, I always say, for me, what's the bottom line here? I'm trying to convey a certain information. I want to make sure the person on the other end, sticking with that email example, gets this crucial information right here. that is really an important way for me to make sure that I stay away from giving them all the information.
Yes, yes.
Right? That's my tendency, right? I
Yeah.
want to give you the whole picture.
Yeah.
And that is definitely going to be one of those things where a simple email ends up taking 30 minutes or more, or even worse, it never gets written
Yes,
because
yes.
we can't wrap our brains around activating on that email in a way that works
Yeah.
for us.
And especially when you're answering a yes or no question. No, no is a fine answer. Or no, thank you, I have a prior commitment. But what a lot of us do, especially with ADHD, is we go into, I don't know if it's excuse mode, but we just give people more than they need to know. And
Right.
what I've found is in general with email, especially if you're communicating to someone who doesn't really understand ADHD, is if they want to know more, they'll ask. So if you say no or a
Right.
simple answer, usually the person, if they need more information, they'll ask you. If you overload, which a lot of us can do, people look at me like I have two heads sometimes because I just gave way too much information, and they're still processing what? Where a simple no, thank you, or yes, that'd be great. Sometimes with those simple things, we get too emotional, want to give more information, we want to prove ourselves. Sometimes we feel bad. So, yeah, emails with intentional mediocrity makes so much sense.
Absolutely. Defining sufficient, bottom lining it for yourself.
Mhm.
Another way, and this goes for a lot of things, email is an easy one to grab onto because so many of us struggle with that. And part of that, I think, what happens sometimes with email is that we are trying to process
Yes.
whatever it is that is involved with our response
Mhm.
in the email itself. That's maybe part of how you process best. But in terms of communication, that's not necessarily the
Yes,
best way to
yes,
communicate with
yes.
other people. If the word sufficient or appropriate doesn't resonate with you. I had a client years ago who was a computer programmer. This term actually resonates with a lot of my clients in place of sufficient and appropriate. We were really drilling down into the whole perfectionism, all or nothing thinking thing. And he said, "Oh, I think I'm getting it." He said, when you write code, the best code you write is what we call elegant. So it doesn't have a whole bunch of extra stuff in it. It doesn't have
Mhm.
extra steps, extra loops, extra code. It's elegant. It does what it needs to do, nothing more, nothing less. And that really hit me differently too. So it's not
Yes.
like that good enough notion that so many of us
Yeah.
struggle with, or makes you feel like you're shortcutting or not working hard enough or whatever is associated with that notion for you. It really does frame it differently. So it's
Mhm.
clean, it's clear, it's concise, and it's elegant.
And elegant is a good word. It's a very positive word. And I think if people would substitute elegant for mediocrity or sufficient, it's more positive energy. So that's a great word and it makes
Yes.
sense. And
Yeah.
I was watching something
Yeah.
recently. There was a discussion between sophisticated and elegant. Elegant was like a word, and almost the way the person talked about it was very similar to the coding
Yeah.
definition. So yeah,
Absolutely.
elegant.
Absolutely. So thinking about what are the kinds of things that you tend to get hung up on
Yeah.
from a perfectionism perspective, when you really start to look at that, it is pretty pervasive
Yeah. Yeah.
and it can show up in some
Yeah.
wacky ways that you don't realize.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really struggled with earlier in my adult life when I got my own place and I was responsible for all the cleaning was that sort of appropriate level of cleaning.
Yes.
Right. So that whole done is better than perfect notion was something that I had to work really
Yeah.
hard to find my balance with because I believe
Mhm.
I was raised and I believed
Oh yeah.
whether I was really raised this way or I just interpreted it this way, but I believe that you clean corner to corner, hands and knees with a
Yeah.
scrub brush and a bucket
Yeah.
and a
Yeah.
towel, and
Yeah.
you do the whole thing at once or you don't do it at all. And you
Yeah.
don't do it at all if you don't do it right. So finding my way that I could actually keep my house clean, that wasn't
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
every 3 months, I couldn't take it anymore, or we were having company or something,
Yeah.
it was a big
Yeah.
shift for me.
That's a big one where people don't even realize that is perfection. Perfectionism is playing
Mm-hmm.
into cleaning and organizing and household things
Absolutely.
because I was the same way growing up. I used to spend days in my room, don't come out till it's clean. And I'd clean
Right.
it, but sometimes I'd stuff under the bed, but it looked clean. My mother would come up and she'd, clean the way I like it. No, she didn't understand that my brain worked differently. She just thought I was
Right.
being defiant. So it's like the house can be a mess and it can be embarrassing and overwhelming. I know a lot of people, because I've worked with people over the years, especially women. Men, household doesn't usually affect them the same way as women. We say usually. But people like, oh, I didn't realize that's perfectionism. Once they realize that's
Right.
perfectionism, it's, oh, okay, I can just have it be clean enough, good enough, or I can just walk through the pile. There's
Right.
things that,
Right.
or if somebody comes over the house, I'm going to feel okay enough to let them in for 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be perfect. And
Right.
we talked about emails, we talked about cleaning type of things and other things that come into play. But I think that mediocrity, or
Everything.
what's enough, what's, and something that kind of, I don't know whether it's exactly perfectionism, but I'm connecting to this, is when I do a project like the ADHD
Yes.
Expo, I come up with a basic thing, but every year I want to make it better and do something new and different. I
Right.
usually do the whole event myself or minimal support, so making it great and better every year makes sense, but sometimes I don't realize how much energy it's going to take. So
Yes.
I could play into this mediocrity when it comes to something like this. What do people want? What do people need? What's the
Yeah.
basic thing they want to learn and help ADHD? The extra bells and whistles and prizes are great, but they're going to get in the way of like my energy, my time
Right.
to make it super crazy better. And I don't know whether that's perfectionism, but it's connected to this.
I think it's all connected with that all or
Yeah.
nothing thinking and perfectionism. It's all intertwined. It's going back to that whole bottom line it for yourself.
Yeah.
What's the point of this? What's the point of the whole thing? Maybe what's the point of the change that you're trying to make?
Yeah.
That's a big one for me. And when I can bottom line it for myself, then I always talk to my clients about time blindness and how hard it is to estimate how long something's going to take or remember correctly how long something's taken in the past, all of that fun stuff that we struggle with. Instead of guessing or estimating how long something should take,
Yeah.
once you bottom line it for yourself and you really are clear on what's the point of this,
Mm-hmm.
then I always encourage my clients, I do this myself, you come up with a time budget instead, which
Yes.
is also a different kind of way of thinking about it. It sounds the same, but really the way I frame it with my clients is, given what's on my plate right now,
Mm-hmm.
how much time is this worth? Given what's on your plate right now, maybe that email is worth 45 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe next week or tomorrow, that email is worth 10 minutes. It really is about resource allocation at that point. Stepping
Yes.
back from it,
Yeah.
giving yourself that space to look at it more objectively, and then working on your own awareness. Like,
Yes.
where is this getting in my way?
Yeah.
Where do I catch myself thinking things like, the right way? If I can't do this the right way, or I don't have time to do this the right perfectionism, all or nothing thinking. So anything that is like hyperbole like that is
Mm-hmm.
usually an indication that something is off in the way that you're thinking, and you've got to take a look at it.
So where else should we go with this topic?
I think really looking at just really like the myriad places that this can show up. And
Mm-hmm.
it goes from everything from filing, and I'm literally sitting here looking around my office, filing your productivity,
Yeah.
right? If my calendar isn't working perfectly for me, the way I think I should be using my calendar, or if I'm not using the planner the right way, it doesn't work for me. I need to start from scratch.
Yeah.
It really is with everything. There's a practical level of organized, there's a practical level of productive, there's a practical level of sufficient for everything that you do. And yes, it's wonderful to have aspirations and to strive. Hard work is a well ingrained value for me. That's
Mm-hmm.
something that I really do value. But there are diminishing returns when it goes down the perfectionist road. So
Yeah.
you really starting to pay attention to where that's showing up for you is huge.
Yeah. I think this really can play into self-care too, like
Oh,
eating,
absolutely.
sleeping,
Oh,
exercising.
absolutely.
Eating, oh, I didn't eat great today, so why don't I just binge and eat crappy stuff some
Right. Might
other.
as well just eat the cake.
Yeah. Or exercising. Oh, I haven't worked out in 6 weeks. Why bother? I could start with just a 5-minute walk, but
Right.
I want to get back to walking 3 miles. It gets into that. And sleeping, yeah,
Same
I
thing.
think sleeping is affected by it. I'm sure it is.
I think it's all, it really all is all, I always say, like, all of this ADHD stuff is like a tangled plate of spaghetti, right?
Yes.
So it really is all interconnected. So if you're staying up late because
Yeah,
blown
yeah.
the day
Because
and you haven't
yeah,
done something the way you think you
yeah,
should be doing it, and now you're escaping into YouTube videos or
yeah,
some Netflix, or you haven't brought yourself to do something you wanted or needed to do because you couldn't find your way in other than the way you thought was the right way, that
yeah.
can end up with a late night binge
Yeah,
or
that,
getting
yeah.
carried away on something
Yes,
and getting
yes,
sucked
yes,
into
yeah. You know, waiting
it.
till
Right?
last minute and
I mean,
making it perfect. Just one more thing.
who hasn't done that? Now
Yeah.
it's late. Now it better be really good.
The perfectionism really plays that getting it done. What is the goal? What's the outcome? What is the purpose of doing this? I think really tapping into that instead of trying to make it perfect, trying to make it excellent. Excellent's great, but we're not going to be excellent on our first few attempts. That's human nature, but we want to be perfect. We want to be excellent, and excellence can take time and practice.
It's
Yep.
subjective, it's variable, it's circumstantial. So
Yeah.
what's perfect to you or excellent to you
Yeah.
today is different than what's perfect or
Yeah.
excellent to me. And it's different than what's going to be
Yeah.
perfect or excellent tomorrow. Really going back to what's the point of this? What does done look like? And
Yeah.
how much time is this worth? Is
So I think we're getting towards the end of today's episode. Is there anything else you'd like to share or any final points to leave people with?
Yeah, I think a lot of this starts with trying to look gently at the kinds of things that become time sucks for you, or the
Yeah.
kinds of things that maybe you avoid or put off, and start to pay attention to that thinking related to all or nothing behavior. Like, I only have 10 minutes now. I might as well not bother to exercise if I can't do it right. Start to pay attention to where those thoughts pop up for you. And that, I think, is going to show a lot about where this may be impacting you in your life that you're not realizing.
I just think I want to, in a sense, give people permission to do this. I know they don't need our permission,
Yes.
but sometimes when somebody puts it out there and says it, they're giving us permission to look at it differently, to practice mediocrity in some things, to not
Yes.
always have to strive for perfectionism.
Absolutely. Give yourself permission. That's what
Yes,
really matters.
we're giving it to you,
Awesome.
so hopefully you'll give yourself that permission. All right, I want to
Absolutely.
take this time to thank everyone for listening to ADHD Support Talk Radio. If you have not done so yet, you can stop by ADHDsupporttalk.com and join our Facebook community. And if you like this episode, if you're on YouTube, like the video, comment on it. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or whatever it's called, or any other type of, I know we're all over the place, comment, like it, share it. If you know somebody else that might like this episode, please share it. Thank you again, Lynn, and thank you everyone for taking the time to listen to this ADHD Support Talk Radio episode.